Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called 3,000 Spanish Villages Are Uninhabited. I drove deep into empty Spain. This is from a channel called Spain Unfiltered, so check it out. This is a huge thing. I know that it's, a lot of places are quite uninhabited because people have historically left those little pueblos, those little towns. So only old people remain, basically, if someone indeed remains there. So this is going to be very interesting. Let's check it out and comment, like, and subscribe.
We hear a lot of talk about Spain's overheating cities, tourism, traffic and overcrowding. But there's another Spain, and it's moving in the opposite direction. To find out more about abandoned Spain, I drove deep into a region that rarely sees outsiders. And what I thought would be a story about economics turned into something unexpectedly human. I discovered a story that begins with a dictator and decades of rural decline and ends with a lesson that reaches far beyond these empty valleys, back to every community, abandoned or not. Spain's depopulation crisis didn't start by accident. In the 1940s, Franco was still consolidating power. Armed anti-Franco guerrillas operated from Spain's remote mountain regions where state control was weakest. While there was no single national policy of forced depopulation, the region increasingly favoured concentrating people into towns and cities. The result was a countryside that became easy to monitor and gradually emptied. By the 1950s, Spain entered a phase of economic revival. As the Mediterranean coast was being reimagined as a future tourism magnet, the interior became the canvas for Franco's industrial vision. Massive state-funded dam projects promised water management and cheap hydroelectric power. Extremadura, home to the Tejo and Guadiana rivers, was a prime target. Today, the region is dotted with reservoirs, peaceful and beautiful, but hiding the remains of entire communities which were forcefully uprooted. On the banks of the Gabriel and Galan Reservoir, the walled village of Granadilla still stands, evacuated to make way for water that never actually reached it. Even today, the descendants of the former residents are not allowed to return.
That's crazy.
But forced relocations like Granadilla were the tip of the iceberg. As resources were directed towards cities and infrastructure and transportation links centered around them, urban economies grew quickly, while rural economies fell behind. A wealth gap was seeded that...
I think that's a story as old as time. It's always the rural places that suffer the consequences, and obviously that's why people move. And it creates a loop and a circle in which people keep moving to the city and they abandon the villages.
Decade after decade has only grown wider.
Correct.
So back in June, I drove through Extremadura with an old friend. As we explored town after town, a pattern became impossible to ignore. Streets that should have been bustling in the mid-morning were quiet. Shops were shuttered, and almost everybody we saw was elderly. We ended that trip just as the summer heatwave arrived, but what I had seen had sparked my interest. Depopulation was pushing Extremadura to the edge, but there are areas of Spain that had already been pushed over the edge. I wanted to see España vacía. So in October, I set off again, this time following the coast north past Alicante, past Benidorm, before turning inland towards the mountains that divide Valencia from Aragon. The further I drove, the quieter everything became. And then, right on the border, the road simply changed.
Disappeared.
Smooth tarmac turned into a rough cinder track, twisting deeper into the hills.
It looks quite apocalyptic. I mean, beautiful place, but everything looks so empty and quiet. And again, there's not even a road, that it looks apocalyptic.
Felt like crossing an invisible line between the Spain that most people know and a Spain that's slowly slipping from living memory. I was heading for La Estrella, a tiny village on the edge of Aragon that I'd heard about for years, but even with maps, GPS and planning, I still managed to get completely lost. After doubling back through the...
And it's not even as if you're lost in a highway or you're lost in a road. No, and I'm literally lost in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the woods.
Valley and skirting round to the other side of the mountains, I finally found the right track, and I arrived in La Estrella 4 hours later than I scheduled. After wandering around a little, I filmed a short piece to camera, and, well, honestly, it captures my reaction better than anything I could script.
It's beautiful, though.
I'm kind of lost for words for this place, you know?
It's beautiful.
Travelled a long time to get here because I looked online, I'd heard about the place. It became quite a famous kind of YouTube destination amongst the Spanish kind of YouTube community. but it's not quite what I expected. I expected a typical rundown, abandoned Spanish village with kind of, collapsing properties and this, that and the other. But to come here, it's not just some poor little agricultural village which went wrong. I mean, the church behind me is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah,
there's an
it's
incredible villa which looks like it was built in the 18th century. It's a really beautiful, wonderful place to be, and it's quite...
Again, that's what gives it the apocalyptic thing, because everything looks so well. I mean, it's obviously old, but it's pretty. Like he said, it's not just ruins. But you're expecting the people. You're not finding people. You would assume like there's some kind of virus that happened here. Like some zombie came and ate everyone, and that's how the whole thing is empty. It's like suspended in time. That's how I would describe it.
Scary that it can be so quiet. No, it's quite eerie to be here and to think, this used to be a thriving little square. There've been people from all around the area coming to church in the morning. And yet now there's a couple of people around who are doing some work on houses, which I assume they're going to have as weekend houses. And it's good to see that there's some solar panels on top of some of the roofs, I've noticed, and a satellite dish here and there. So there obviously are some of the properties being used for weekends and the like, but it is a ghost town.
What makes La Estrella even more striking is how recent this abandonment really is. Until about a year ago, two people still lived here, Sinforosa and Martin, an elderly couple who'd been the last permanent residents for 30 years. They even became quite famous, featuring in a Land Rover commercial, but in their 80s, with declining health, they had no choice but to leave. Martin's old Land Rover still sits where he parked it. A quiet reminder that life here wasn't ancient or distant. It was happening until very recently. But as haunting and as beautiful as this place is, I can understand why nobody lives here now. La Estrella isn't just remote, it's inaccessible. The road I took wasn't a scenic back route, it was the route. There are no shops, no school, no doctor, no public transport. Why
would you move there if there are no work opportunities? There's nothing. Like, of course people are going to leave because they have to. They've been literally pushed away.
Groceries would mean hours of driving. Seeing a doctor would take an entire day.
It's crazy.
With snow on these tracks, and it does snow here, access would be impossible. So life here might seem romantic, but it would be hard. Estrella and the remote villages like it ask for more than most people can give. In the vast mountainous landscapes of Spain, is it even reasonable to expect that villages like this would survive in the modern world? In the morning, I set off even deeper into the most sparsely populated region of Spain.
Oh my.
I'd been invited to a village called Sarnago, where I'd heard that they were taking a very modern approach to keeping their community on the map. My route took me through Aragon, past Zaragoza and deep into Castilla y Leon. As I let the video give you an idea of the scale of these open spaces, I want to say a big thank you for the response to my last video, especially if you're one of the thousands who subscribed or left a comment. I started off trying to respond to everybody, then just trying to read them all, but it becomes really hard to keep track of what I have and haven't seen, and well, that's a real shame because many of those comments were long, thoughtful and deserved my response. So I've set up a member space for people who want to go that bit deeper. You'll get early access to new videos. I'll post videos discussing the points that came up in comments. I'll share footage that doesn't make the final cut and some of my research, like this route, for example. I'd love to meet you there, so please do follow the QR code that's up now or the link in the description if it's something you think you'd like to be part of. Anyway, back to the story. By the time I arrived in Sarnago, it was gone midday. I've been invited to visit on this particular day because something special was happening. Marcos was waiting for me when I arrived. He's an architect and responsible for the design of Sarnago's co-living space. He gave me a tour of the village. We started at the old communal laundry, which has now been converted into an open-air library. Then the ruined church, where Marcos told me that his uncle had narrowly been missed when the bell fell from the tower. Today, it's been preserved in the village museum, not as a relic, but as part of a story that's still being told. They hope that one day they'll be able to return it to its rightful position.
Hopefully.
Then Marcos took me to see their flagship project. a co-living space designed by him and being built by the Amigos de Sarnago, the group of former residents and their descendants who've looked after this village since 1980.
The ground floor is a huge space, a social area with restaurant, small bar, and big social area to work or co-working, and in the second floor, hostel with small rooms with pumpets and a social area with kitchen and living room. And we are in digital nomads, or for example, companies that want to do some team building. They come here, live, work, do some activities in this environment like bike, trekking, cycling,
that sounds great.
Running, trail, what they want.
And then he introduced me to a word that I've never heard before.
Hacenderas.
Hacenderas. Hacenderas.
Hacenderas. I think it's not a word in English.
Hacenderas.
It's like we are from Sarnago and we say, okay, the 3rd of October, we come back to Sarnago this weekend and we work.
And people have to come from a long way away, I assume.
Yeah, of course. It's mainly from this close area. It's like Soria, Logroño, Tudela, Pamplona, Zaragoza is 2 hours away, mostly. As for example, people from the south, people from Barcelona, people from Galicia. The plan is we start working at 8. We stop at 10 to get some food, lunch, and now at 2 or 3 we get the lunch.
Very hard work, though.
Of course it is.
The morning it is hard.
It is.
And of course there are people here working, but there are a lot of people in the kitchen doing the lunch, doing a lot of things, or if not in the other part of the Sarnago, cutting the grass, or
of course. So there's maintenance that he's doing as well as was
This from they call this hacendera, but it's really typical in this zona. It's not just Sarnago thing. We didn't invent it.
No,
it's from there. They have a lot of names, but it's always say we live here. We want it to be good. Just work.
Brilliant. There's a proper community spirit, we'd say in England, but it's not something you see in big towns. Only in small.
Of course, you're not going to find it in big towns. This only can occur in a small town village in which everyone has left, basically.
The co-working hub that they're building is being funded entirely by donations. Marcos couldn't tell me when it would be finished. They started 4 years ago. It may take many more, but
of course, it's a work in progress.
Somehow that didn't seem to matter. Then we went to see some more of the work that the community had already completed. Marcos showed me the old school building, now a communal space and museum. The walls were covered in photographs, former residents, school children, teachers, faces frozen in time, but not forgotten. Upstairs, the village museum told yet another story. Fiestas that had been revived after years of silence. Traditional dress, unique to the area, with Sarnago's own colours, still used in village fiestas, which are believed to date back nearly 2,000 years to the Celtic origins of this region, the Serrania Celtiberica. Everyday objects showed just how hard and simple life here once was. A reminder that this was never an easy place to live, even in its prime. That afternoon, I was invited to join everybody for lunch. A meat stew cooked slowly over an open fire, served in generous portions with equally generous helpings of local wine and cider. As the village settled into a quiet afternoon calm, I had a wander around. The last permanent residents here had died in 1979, over 45 years before Sinforosa and Martin had left La Estrella. And yet, despite the ruined buildings, in stark contrast to Estrella's villas and church, even in the silence of siesta time, the atmosphere in Sarnago felt totally different. And it wasn't until the next day,
because there's people there, at least they're trying to build something,
that I really understood why.
Oh, what a beautiful
Now, before I move on, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Marcos, Jose Marie, and everybody who made me so welcome in Sarnago. There is much more info about Sarnago in the members area, including the full interview and tour of the village with Marcos, and loads of footage that it pained me to leave out. If you'd like to help support their project or pay them a visit, there's a link in the description below explaining just how you can do that. The next morning, after saying my goodbyes, I headed deeper into the surrounding mountains. There were two more abandoned villages I wanted to see. I had no map. I'd just been pointed in the rough direction. And well, when I finally found those villages, I understood something that I hadn't before. Until then, I hadn't really seen true abandonment. In Extremadura, there were still people living their lives. In La Estrella, the preserved church, Martin's Land Rover, cats, and
remains.
Recent memories in the air, even if it was tinged with sadness. In Sarnago, there was constant return, cherished history, and a clear vision of the future. But here, buildings had collapsed completely. Paths were overgrown. There was no sign that anybody other than hikers had set foot here for years. But electrical fittings still clung to the walls, a sign that these villages had been alive not so long ago.
At one
My
point.
trip through Extremadura in the summer had shown me that structural investment is needed to reverse that region's fortunes. And well, on this trip, I'd seen what would happen if that decline fell beyond the point of no return. As sad as it is to see a village like La Estrella lying empty, it is unreasonable to expect that the investment that would be needed to link such places with the modern world could be justified. When I was heading towards Sarnago, I was expecting to find a town that, through technology and modern working practices, was aiming to reverse its fortunes and justify its existence in the modern world. But surrounded by these ruins, I realised that I'd missed the point completely. Marcus's words came back to me.
Because when you come back, you at least keep it alive.
And then
That's
I
true.
remembered something Jose Marie, one of the driving forces.
Yeah, like justify their existence is justifying just by being there, because people need a place, want to live there, want to return.
Behind the Amigos de Sarnago had said over lunch the day before. A village isn't abandoned until it's forgotten.
Correct.
Until then, it's just depopulated. Now, Marcos
that's nice.
couldn't tell me when the co-working hub would be finished, and I don't think finishing it is the most important thing. You see, what matters is those hacienderas, the coming together, the shared work, the meals around those tables, not just remembering Sarnago, but continuing to make memories there and looking to a future that, by welcoming people in, stops the past from being forgotten. Depopulation strikes straight to the heart of Spain's identity. And maybe it's the hacienderas, a concept so Spanish that it has no direct English translation, that will stop that identity itself from being abandoned. Now, I plan to explore more of Spain's depopulated regions. I still have a lot to learn, but I do feel that thanks to Sarnago, I now understand that this isn't about numbers or structures. It's about history, culture, and above all, people.
Correct.
Now, I wouldn't have been able to make this video if I couldn't speak Spanish. If you would like some excellent tips on how to learn, please do check out this interview with my friend James. He's a veteran Spanish teacher. It's up there on my second channel. Thank you so much for watching. Please do consider subscribing to the channel or even becoming a member. It really will help me to make more videos like this. In the meantime, thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Yeah, I like something very important that he was mentioning is, I think, like something about being, people that are making memories there. Like, as long as people keep making memories in a city, in a place, in a town, basically let's put it in as in a place. The place is not going to be forgotten just because, I think that's really true. When people can still remember living there, people still have memories of that place. That place cannot be, it's been depopulated, but it's not forgotten. It's not abandoned. It's just sort of momentarily sort of left behind, to put it in a way. But of course, it's lovely to see that they're trying to revive these places. I know that there's been, because this is a big concern in Spain. I know that obviously this is a small scale situation in which he went and he visited three villages, 3 towns. But in Spain, there's tons of this. There's some of them he mentioned, it's 3,000. So it is kind of, yes, this should be, and it's a concern, I think, for the country, because of course, you have so many abandoned places. I don't think if it happens in other countries as well, but it's Yeah, it shouldn't really be the case. I think we as humans, well, sometimes I think obviously places have been abandoned, but like to the bigger scale that if you have like so many people that have left, I don't think that's quite normal. Obviously, we know the reasons. It's been obviously because of all the history in Spain, the dictatorship from the 1950s down to the 1960s. It was a moment of economic hardships, political hardships. People had to flee, and of course, you understand it. But once I think people move somewhere, and especially under those circumstances, it's quite hard to, and obviously everything that trickled down and all the consequences from that, it's hard to just move back. Like, people, of course, were not moving back, and all the descendants already made their life somewhere. So it's not easy as, just return to your village. I don't think that's really, that's not feasible. However, I do love to see how there's, because there's gonna be some sort of thing that we can do, right? And I love seeing efforts like this of like, yeah, let's think about this, Drew. Let's think what we could do to actually improve this, because this is a really big problem. I think obviously sometimes it just depends. Like he said, there are places in which you're able to find people. There's old people basically, and there's nothing new under, I don't know, the age of like 70, which is bad, because obviously when those people die, there's not going to be anyone, left in the village, because people are not moving there. But of course, it's a really, like, to solve this, I think you would need so many things, because it's a problem that is not easily solved. It's not as easy as to just tell people, hey, move there, you can buy a house there. Because of course, if there's no growth, economic opportunities, there's no work, there's no schools, like if there are no shops, there's no anything. Why would people move? Like, that's not feasible for people. That's why people keep moving to the big cities or to other cities. Now, sometimes cities are a little bit smaller, but yes, there's not going to be this. People have just move to other places. So I love seeing efforts like this, but I don't know if that's the solution for everything, because you would obviously need like so much, like he mentioned, like it's run only on donations. Like, they never know when it's going to be finished, which is great. But I don't know if that's the solution for absolutely everything. I think it's just, I don't know, but I don't have the answer either. It's just, yes, I don't really know. You would have to make a really worldwide effort, well, not worldwide, but like a national effort to improve this with, I don't know, the government has to get involved probably. I don't know. It's what I think, but I don't really know. I don't have the answer, but it's good that a lot of like places like this have someone that, as long as someone's trying to keep the tradition alive, it's good. I think the problem starts when everyone moves out, everyone dies out, and all the traditions just are lost, and all the cultural things are lost, because basically, like he said, if there's no one to remember, then that is going to be lost. That's going to be lost in time. And that's really where the sad part comes in, because traditions and cultural stuff shouldn't be that easily lost. Obviously, it's a feat that they have remained for so many centuries, but they shouldn't die out. It's a really sad situation, and it's crazier to think that you have places, like obviously in the capital in Madrid or in Barcelona or all the other big cities, in which they have a really big housing problem. No one can afford to move out, or like places are expensive, or they're simply outright there, you can't find housing, and you have places like this which are completely empty. But I understand it's not as easy as just like move to the town where there's nothing. It's no, of course not, that's not feasible. But it's kind of like it's a conundrum, right? It's sort of like, it sounds crazy to think like what all the other cities are overflowing with people, there's no housing, and then others are so completely empty that you have this. But yes, I love seeing efforts like the one with the guy here, and to make it, you only need one person that tries to make a change in order to sort of spark, I think, the change in a lot of places. So I love his project. Hopefully he'll be able to finish this at least sooner than he thinks, and maybe I would love to see that in those other villages, because again, it's a really big problem. But who knows? And it's not even just traditions. I know that some people, all those traditional, like work, like I don't know, like the shoemaker, for instance, or like the butcher, those professions are also being lost as a consequence of this. So nobody's around to, they can't retire because nobody does this anymore, and as a result, those professions and those like art forms are gonna be lost. And of course, that maybe includes, in the whole cultural thing. But again, it's just like a very, very sad situation, and hopefully we'll be able to find the solution soon. But that's it for today, and I'll see you soon. Bye!